Hello everyone. So today we're going to start off by getting our search box working to filter the list box items that we've got. So to start with, we need to come over and click the events lightning bolt, come down to text change, and we double click on here to create our method here. And because we're going to need it for both text boxes, we'll repeat that same thing here with text change as well. So now that we've got these two created, we're going to use the event that when the text is changed, we're going to start searching for it. The very first thing that we want to check is to make sure that the text itself is not blank. So we'll do the text search lexicon word text length. And we want it to be is not equal to 0. Now at this point, what we're going to need to do is use the text that's in the box as a substring that we will then search to see if it exists in any of the list of words that exist for here. So for the lexicon, well, that means we're going to be looping, and we'll do the int I equals 0, I less than the all lexicon words dot count, I plus plus. We'll go through like this. And we'll also want to start off by clearing out the list box. So let's go ahead and put that in here first. So the lexicon words items clear. So we'll clear out, and then we're going to rebuild it based on what comes back as a result of what we're searching for. So now what we need to do is just check. So we say if the all lexicon words I dot word or phrase dot contains, and what we'll put in for the contains is the text for the search lexicon word dot text, then we will have the ability to continue. So let's go here like so. And we do have to spell words correctly again. So we'll do this. And I might have put too many parentheses. Let's see. There we go. This. Okay. So if it is contained in there, then all we have to do is we do the add of the lexicon words, and specifically we're going to be the word or phrase that we're adding in there. So this is all we have to do to loop through while we're doing the search. So we'll come back down here, copy this, come down to here, paste that in, and once again we just update this from lexicon word to the target down here. And the target list box is also being updated. Let me move my mouse so it's not messing that up anymore. Target. And we do target here. Search with target word. And of course, you might be wondering, why don't I make a method out of this? And I've honestly been tempted to. But because we have to update all of these anyway, the overhead of creating the method really isn't going to save a whole lot than just copying and pasting twice. In any case, we're limiting our boxes to 2 items right now. So let's just see if this works. So I'm going to run this. It, of course, takes a little bit the first time that I run it for it to compile. But we've got my username here. Select that. I'm going to go to Manage Lexicon. We come over to English because we have several in here. And if I'm looking for test, you can see that it updates. Now, the problem, as you can see, is when we go back, delete everything, it doesn't clear that out. It doesn't reset to what we had before. So let's solve that issue right now too. So if it's not equal to 0, we do that. That means that if it is equal to 0, what we can do is we just do the list box items and we clear, and then we do the regular loading of the list box that happens at the very beginning. So what we can do is we just come up here and we can update the list box, and we're going to need it for both of these, right? So we'll come back down here, and the first one, we paste this in. The list box that we're going to be passing in is, of course, the LB for the lexicon words right here, and the words that we're going to be passing in are the all lexicon words. So put that in place here. And copy this, come back down here and add this else statement in as well. Update this and update this, and finally type this and spell it correctly again. Okay, now let's see if this works when we run it. So we put this in, we select that database. We're going to manage lexicon, we come over here, we select our English, we start typing test. We don't want test, we come back, and it resets back to the beginning. So this is the way that we can have the search go. And now let's just make sure if we go into test, if we double click, does it open test? And you can see it does. So everything is working as intended. Let's check and make sure that this box is also doing what it's supposed to, and it is. We'll click second test. And as you can see, everything is coming up the way that it is supposed to work. So we've got the search boxes working, and we can filter the list box. So because we know that this is working, I'm going to come back up here and reset this back to 100. I can remove this comment and save this. So now when we're in here, the list box will not get overloaded. We won't have too many items. And we can still search for the items. So when we go to English, now we can see all of the items that we needed to are showing up here. So the only thing left to do is we need to do our linking. So if I want to link these words to the Spanish versions that we've got in here, then we need this link unlink selected words to work. So let's go ahead and close that. We can come back to here and we double click on link and unlink selected words to open the method that we're going to be using here. So the first thing that we might be wondering on this is what exactly are we doing when we're linking the words together? Essentially, we're just creating a relationship between the two words. So we're associating one word with another word. And the word can be associated in the same language, or it can be associated to a different language. All of that is up for whatever you want to use it for. And we'll see the flexibility once we actually get to designing the flashcard portion. But for now, if somebody clicks on the link, we first have to see, is there an item in both list boxes? If the list box for lexicon words dot selected index is not equal to -1, and the list box for the target words selected index is also not equal to -1, then we're good to continue. If either one of those is equal to -1, then we'll be skipping this completely and it'll just do nothing when we click on it. So that's going to be the first thing. The second thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to need to check, is there already an association for these two words? If there is, we will unlink them. If there's not, we will link them. So for us to do this, we're going to need to have another object. So we'll come up here to the top. We've got our list words. We got all of this stuff. Let's put it up here actually. And what we're going to do is another list, and this time it's going to be of the type of lexicon. We can call this all lexicon items, and this will be a new list of lexicon, like so. And then, of course, with these in place, we're going to need to actually load, just like we loaded the languages, and later on we load the words. So right after this, let's go ahead and do a private void load lexicon method. And if we're going to load the lexicon, we also need a private void save lexicon method as well. So this will be how we access the data. And let's go ahead and look at the lexicon object again. So I'll click down on here and we'll pull up lexicon. I think I misclicked. There we go, lexicon.cs. As you can see, we're going to have the ID, the language ID that it's in, the word or phrase ID, and then a list of the associated words or phrases. So these are all just longs. It's just numbers. One thing I should note is that when it comes to the associated words or phrases, this list will be two items, will be two entries per item. First ID is going to be the language ID of the related word. Second ID is the word ID itself. Okay, so that's something to bear in mind. So the list will actually be double as long as we might be expecting it to be. Let's go back here to manage lexicon now. So that's what we're going to be pulling in. Now, obviously, we're going to be doing the same basic structure as what we've got in here. So to load this, we're going to need, of course, as we have above the language directory, we're going to need the lexicon directory. Well, in this case, we don't need a directory because a lexicon is going to be just a single file. So all we really need is the string of file name, and it's going to be the form1.basepath plus form1.lexicon file. And if we look back over at form1, come up to the top here, it's just going to be lexicon.dat. Now, we could put this in its own folder as well, but I'm fine. I'm happy with keeping it in the root folder. The lexicon is going to be for all of the words, regardless of the language you're using. This is just to keep them organized. We're not going to use the lexicon directly when we're doing the flashcards. We're going to build decks of cards off of the lexicon tailored for the individual user. This is just going to function sort of as the core database where everything gets put in. And we're only going to be accessing it when we actually are creating or making these links between words as we're designing it. When we're actually using the program, all of this is in the back end. And I should probably point out that everything that we've done so far in this whole database menu, theoretically, once you as a person creating the data for this program are done with it, you could delete this whole database menu completely and just orphan those fields out there. You don't need them for a user. The user is going to use what you've designed from this. So this is us creating the backend so that a user can then use the program later. However, you can also leave it in there and let a user customize to their heart's content as well. So for now, that's in the future. Right now, let's go ahead and build this lexicon. So we start with the file name coming to this lexicon. We do the basic if file exists check for file name, just like always. And if it doesn't exist, we're going to ignore it. If it does exist, then we'll need the file contents again, going to be the form1 load data of this file name. And then when this comes through, we're going to have the array of the string of file rows to be the file contents, split again with the form1 line separator. So all of this is exactly as we've done it before. Then, of course, we go into our int I equals 0, I less than file rows dot length -1 I++. Put in this, and here is where things get a little different. So, as I mentioned when we looked at the lexicon up here, this final thing is going to be another list of more words, more items. It's another list that is kind of nested within our list of items. So this is going to be a little bit more difficult to program the way we've got it. That is why we've come up here and we've created this variable here for the lexicon separator. So if you don't have this in your form1, you need to add this in. Just remember that. Let's go back here. So first, though, we are going to go ahead and pull in, just like before, the file fields. And it's going to be the file rows I at index I dot split with the form1 dot field separator. This part is like all the other ones we've done. Now, in fact, at this point, we actually can even create our temporary lexicon. So we'll do a lexicon of temp lexicon as a new lexicon, because we're going to store the first part of this just like we do up here. And that's kind of why I've kept this where you can see it on the screen at the same time, because this is going to be the same thing so far. So we're going to have temp lexicon.id, and we'll spell this correctly, lexicon.id is equal to the long of the parse field 0. That part's the same. Then the temp lexicon dot language ID is going to be the long of the parse file fields 1. Then we've got the lexicon dot word or phrase ID, and that's going to be the long parse out of file fields 2. But now we've got the third one, which is going to be another list. So to get that list, we're going to need to split this again. So now we're going to do the string, and we're going to break up this into the particular list. So let's call this list lexicon parts. This is going to be file fields index 3 specifically split amongst the form1.lexicon separator. So now that we've got these, we need to do another loop. And since we're already using I, we'll just use J this time. So it actually fills out this for us. We can put this in. We put in our loop here. And at this point, what we're going to do is we're just going to add to the list. In order for this list to work, though, we've created this temp here. We also need to create the sub list within it. So the temp lexicon dot associated words or phrases is going to be a new list of long that is going to be that subtype. And I believe long has to be lowercase for this to work. So with this associated, now we can just add them in. And remember, we are going to alternate between language ID and word ID for the language going first. And this way we can keep track of both the language and the word ID when they are linked together. So for this, let's create another list. It'll be the list of longs that will be coming out of this. And this will be the temp association list. And it's going to be a new list of long, just like so. And then what we can do is we can just say the temp associated list dot add the long dot parse list lexicon parts J. So this is a little bit complicated, but remember, this list lexicon parts is this field in particular split into these components. So we're going to add that, and we're just going to loop through each one of those. It's going to add this all to the list. And actually, I just realized we are going to need to put this list before we go into the loop, otherwise it will overwrite. And then once this loop is complete, then what we're going to do is we're going to add this to the temp lexicon dot associated word or phrase is going to be this temp association list. And we'll just add it there. Now temp lexicon, we have the new list, so this will work. Once we have all of that done, then after this, we're going to add to our all lexicon items, where we'll add in the temp lexicon that we just created. We got this inside the for loop on this too. We need to put this before the for loop for this to work correctly. So there we go. Thankfully, it showed us those errors so we could fix them. So this is the way that we're going to load all of the lexicon items when they come in. And in fact, we can come up to here and just say, when we're doing all of this stuff, we can just load lexicon. We'll do that. Now we need to do the same logic in reverse when we are saving the lexicon items. So again, we start with our file name, and the file name is going to be the form1 base path plus the form1 lexicon file name. Then we need our string for output, and that's going to be nothing to start with. And then we do our loops again. So for int I equals 0, I is less than the all lexicon items, going to this, like so. Then we have output is going to be the output, all lexicon items of index I dot ID plus the form1 field separator. Then we have output is going to be the output again plus the all lexicon items I for the language ID plus the form1 field separator. Now we need to increase the output again with this going to the all lexicon items I dot word or phrase ID plus the form1 field separator. And now after all this, we need to do our next loop. So we're going to do another for int of j equals 0. j is less than, and this is going to be the all lexicon items of sub 1 associated words or phrases dot count. So it gets a little big, but hopefully the logic of this is following through. And as we're going through this, once again we have output is going to be the output plus, in this case, is going to be the all lexicon items of I, index I, dot associated words or phrases of index j plus the form1 dot lexicon separator. We'll do that. Once those are all output, then we just simply do the output is going to be the output plus the form1 field separator, because we always have that at the end. And then, of course, the output is output plus the form1 line separator. So it's only slightly more complex than the way that we're doing our normal saving and loading of other items. Once we're completely done with this, we can call the save data. We send in file name and we send in output. So we save that. So now we have a way to both save and load our lexicon. But right now there's no data in there. So obviously the next step is going to be, how do we get it in from this part?